The league leaders came to Kenilworth Road on Wednesday night and performed a smash and grab as Sunderland won 2-1 against Luton Town on a controversial evening of football at Kenilworth Road. Alongside me to review a disappointing but maybe positive night for the town is the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, this one really did feel like both sides of the coin.
It's a Schrodinger's cat of a football match, wasn't it? That's one for the philosophy fans.
That's all the philosophy you'll be hearing, but we'll reflect on the night as a whole straight after this intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast, which is shortlisted for the Best Football League podcast in this year's Football Content Awards. And this season we are sponsored by Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. And we saw an awful lot of that on Wednesday night, didn't we? Because we had an extra academy product on the bench, 3 in total. So good things from the academy. We'll come on to all of that shortly. As I said before the intro, we're reviewing Luton Town 1, Sunderland 2, and alongside me I've got Jimbo as always. Jimbo, we knew it was going to be a hard game. We knew it was going to be a harder game than Saturday because Sunderland actually turned up as opposed to Watford, who, well, they didn't, did they? But I actually thought we were better last night than we were on Saturday, and yet we lose and we drub Watford. This game's, if ever you work out this game, it finds a way to make sure that you haven't worked it out.
Very, very strange feeling at the end of it, wasn't it? Because I'm with you. I can't remember the last time I was as positive about a defeat because I think everything was there bar the finishing. Two defensive mistakes, I suppose, as well. But the play was exactly what we wanted, and it proved that the Watford game wasn't a fluke and it wasn't just the one-off because it was a derby day. That was the benchmark, is what he said, Rob Edwards, and it proves so. How many times have we seen games where you've played 2 in a week and the next one's a bit of a letdown because maybe they're knackered and stuff, but that wasn't the case. So now it's just, I think we've just got to say that if they play like that all the time, they're going to beat most teams or get results against most teams because most teams won't defend as well as Sunderland. And you have to give them credit. They defended absolutely fantastically, but that is pretty much all they did, apart from 2 shots at goal. Unfortunately, they went in.
And a lot of time wasting, yeah. I agree. I mean, I come away from Kenilworth Road last night feeling so much more optimistic about our top 6 chances than I was, and I was always optimistic about our top 6 chances. Because I really like the play. There's so much about the way that the team was set up last night that I really, really liked. Not least the role that Tom Holmes had in the side, and we'll come on to that shortly. Because the good thing going into the night was, obviously, when we did the preview, we got the preview out as early as we could do, and we hadn't got Rob's update of team news and things. We were really fearing the worst of the 4 players that went off injured on Saturday. Thankfully, only one of those failed to make the starting 11 on Wednesday night. That was Reece Burke. I think we all knew that Reece Burke wasn't going to start the game. Daiki Hashioka came in for him at right wing back, but the big positive was that Tom Holmes was fit. There was no concussion and all of that, because obviously he wouldn't have just missed last night. He would have missed Saturday as well because of the protocols and everything. And Jesus, we're going to need him on Saturday, aren't we? Tahith Chong was also fit. Tom Krause, we knew once Rob had done his press conference, that was only an illness thing, although he did hint it with the little chat that he had with him that we put in the preview podcast. So just the one change, Hashioka in for Burke. Nothing really changed in terms of setup, shape, style. And we just built from where we left off, albeit we had a much better opposition in front of us.
Yeah, they were very good defensively. Chris Mepham has given them something that they didn't have the last time they came down here, which was a bit of height and presence. And so you have to give them credit there. But we didn't see a lot of them because literally for the first half, Luton were camped out in their territory, which was great, winning the ball back high, press, high intensity. Doughty and Chong having a good little relationship down the left. Clark popping up in some good little spots. Kraus running here, there, and everywhere. Tom Holmes the same. It was so positive, and they didn't really create clear-cut chances, but then again, Morris sticks the ball in the onion bag, and that's not given. Which is a major talking point. But if you go a goal up going into the half time, it's different complexion. You sort of worry that it wasn't going to go Luton's way because of such a good first half. But they came out and did the same thing. It's just that a couple of mistakes got punished.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Sunderland are a good side, and they are. I actually thought Sunderland, that was a better version of Sunderland than the one we beat in the playoff semi-final. Yeah. I don't know if man for man they're as good, but the performance that they produced, they were a lot more able to stand up to what we threw at them. I mean, what we threw at them in the playoff semi-final was way, way, way too much for them. Last night, like you say, Chris Mepham, 09 as well, to be fair to him. I mean, he's a shithouser, isn't he? But he's one of those, you want him in your team, you hate him when he's not in your team. Don't know what that launching himself into the melee of players at the end was all about, but
I do wonder if there's going to be any.
There'll be a repercussion,
because if you see the replay, I think Jordan Clark raises a hand to him when he's up there, and then just because of that running off the pitch to jump on players, the melee anyway is probably going to be.
We're going to get the old FA statement, aren't we? At some point, and. But you know what? I'm fine with it because they've been told that they didn't care and there's no effort and all of this. Like, well. Yeah, they do, and that shows it, and they're disappointed to lose when they play really, really well, and so they shouldn't just walk off the pitch happy. Okay, we don't want all of them scenes or anything, but be disappointed, be confident enough to be disappointed when we've lost a game of football that 9 times out of 10 we would win, and I'm fine with that. Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Sunderland, first sort of 5 minutes, we had to weather a little bit of a storm, didn't we? Bellingham, I think it was, had a shot that Kaminsky just tipped over, and then they had another one, didn't they, which resulted in Alan Brown getting a back heel, which, I mean, that was never going to beat Kaminsky, or at least shouldn't have beat Kaminsky. But from that moment onwards, the game changed completely in complexion, and we started watching 22-23 Luton Town, didn't we? Centre backs, the wide centre backs, the left side of McGuinness and the right side of McGuinness, so Holmes and Hashioka, they were getting forward like Reece Burke and like Amari Bell was doing that season. We've not really seen that this season because they've been piddling about with it at the back and not pushing forward. But if you think back to when we did the Oxford Review podcast, and James mentioned that Oxford felt like they had an extra man on the pitch all the time, and that extra man came from their left back going into midfield. Well, that's what Tom Holmes did. Yeah. And Tom Holmes went into midfield alongside Tom Krause, and it freed Chong and it freed Clark to go right up. So we basically had 4 up on their back line. They played with a back 4. Each one of them was covered, and they just could not get out. There was a period in the first half where we had 6 straight corners, one from one side to the other. The 6th of them ended with Carlton Morris having a header which was deflected onto the top of the crossbar, and if it hadn't hit the crossbar and gone over, if it hit the crossbar and come out, Elijah was waiting for a tap in. It was like a siege to their goal, wasn't it? And the only way they could get out was bang the ball long. But because they were so deep, McGuinness could just recycle it. He could play it out wide, or he'd give it to Kaminsky to pump forward. The front two were, well, certainly Morris was a handful for both of them. I thought Eli looked a little leggy in the first half, which is understandable. I mean, he ran his absolute bollocks off on Saturday.
Yeah, you know, I think he did a little bit, but he still put himself about.
Yeah, he did. And everything was flowing in that first half. The only thing that first half was missing was a goal. Or was it? Because Luton did score a goal right at the end of the first half, which would have been a lovely time to score anyway. But you kind of knew that we had to score the first goal because we'd already had the nonsense of the goalkeeper going down and the timeout. I mean, it was like a fucking Formula One race, the amount of pit stops there were in that game. But the goalie had gone down in the first half. That was always only ever going to increase. I mean, they've really got to start doing something about this. Say something like you're allowed the trainer on once, and if you need a trainer on the second time, you've got to go off, something like that. Because I mean, the second half one in particular, he went down shaking his hand and the geezer came on and started rubbing his leg. I mean, at least make the fucking thing make sense. Do you know what I mean?
And then, like, a couple of minutes later, he's banging the ball from one end of the pitch to the other. His leg can't hurt that much.
Absolute Absolute joke, that was. So you knew the first goal was important, and it looked like we'd got it. Alfie with another brilliant corner. Hashioka at the front post. We've done this. If you think back to the Newcastle home game last season, it was Barkley to Townsend at the back post. We've done this set piece before. We know exactly how we work it. This time it was Hashioka. Obviously, everyone's marking McGuinness, everyone's marking Holmes, everyone's marking Elijah. So it's Hashioka at the front post to flick it to the back post where Carlton Morris is waiting with absolutely nobody near him, Watford style. It works perfectly. Morris volleys us in, and then you look to the right and old Gormless Gordon's got his flag up, and you're like, what's going on there? Because even from the Kenilworth end, you could see that Morris came from so deep that there was no way he could possibly have been offside. Turns out it looks like Jordan Clark's been flagged for being offside, but at no stage does he get involved in that play. He doesn't.
Well, I'm kind of torn on it because obviously
This is going to be the first time you and I have disagreed, isn't it? And people have said in comments that they'll be interested when we do disagree, and I think we are disagreeing with this.
Well, I initially thought that, and then I think people have seen some people have seen the Sky clip where they're talking, they say who's Miles on, but they're talking about Carlton Morris and not Jordan Clark.
Yep.
And I think when you're watching it with the naked eye, as the lino was, he's seeing Jordan Clark in the offside position. So when you can't be offside when the corner comes over, but when the header happens and it goes towards, in his general direction, he is in, and he makes a movement that can be interpreted as interfering with play, and then so it gets to Morris. I think the disparity comes, and this is what Edward said afterwards, if there's VAR available, then you can look at that from all the different angles and go, actually, probably didn't make a move to it, or it didn't interfere, because it didn't interfere in any Sunderland player's line of sight or anything. They weren't near the ball. But we don't have VAR. So, you know, if Clark is where he is and making any sort of movement, you can see where he gives that. So to some degree, I don't really want to have any sympathy with the lino, because he made a couple of other really frustrating errors that I've watched it back, and at the time, and I've watched it back, you know, with less emotion the next day, and I've thought, I think that by the letter of the law, he's played it by that.
But this is the thing, isn't it? Because by the letter of the law, it says that the opposition player has to be impacted. Well, there wasn't a single opposition player that was impacted by Clark's movement. The goalkeeper never changed position from the moment that Clark moved towards the ball. I still don't think he plays the ball. I think he goes to get back in front of the defensive line. But as he's doing it, Elijah comes to attack the ball. And there's going to be an almighty crash if Clark doesn't jump out of the way of him. And you don't really want to jump in the way of Elijah, to be fair. And that's where the movement comes from. When Clark comes out, at no stage does he turn around. So if he's going to head the ball, he's going to head the ball back towards our goal, not their goal. So he's not making a play for the ball. He's not stupid enough to head his own corner away, is he? I mean, that would just be bonkers. I think the referee should have gone over to the linesman and said, all right, Chief, who's offside? And if the linesman said Clark, then the referee should have had enough about him to say, no, he wasn't getting involved in the play, and give the goal. But the fact that, I mean, neither of, I don't know, they obviously didn't like each other, the referee and the linesman, did they? Because their communication lines all night was nowhere near. But I mean, you're giving me the rule in front of me on this laptop, but you know.
So I looked it up, as we always do when these controversies on IFAB, and there's so much grey area, which I think is problem number one, isn't it, with the offside? I'm very much of the old keep it simple, stupid idea that if you are in an offside position, then you're offside. None of this is he interfering, is he not? Just you'd be offside, and it used to be easy, didn't it?
Oh yeah, back in the day, that's offside all day long.
Yeah.
No problem with that. But we're 2024 now, aren't we? And he does not make a play on the ball. He just jumps out of Elijah's way, or gets out of Elijah's way. And the only way he can get out of Elijah's way is by kind of jumping out of the way. Because like I say, he runs away from the goal. He doesn't turn around. There is absolutely no way he is making a play on that ball to head the ball out of the penalty box, which is what he would do. He would be doing the direction that he ran in. That would be pointless. You just got to apply some common sense here, and they've avoided crashing into each other. Ball's gone to Morris. It's a lovely finish. He's tucked it home nicely, and we've been punished for nothing really. So the rule is that you have to impact an opposition player. So when Clark comes out of the box, there isn't a Sunderland player impacted. The goalkeeper's got all the freedom of movement he wants. So this is not a Bernardo Silva situation of the weekend where the goalkeeper's got to move Clark out of the way by pushing him out of the way. Clark gets out of his way very, very early. There isn't a Sunderland defender that is impacted by Jordan Clark's movement because they've all been fooled by the corner and the fact that Hashioka flicks it on. There is nobody that's impacted by Clark's movement. It's a poor, poor decision.
Yeah, listen, you can argue it both ways, and I can see them both ways. I think if you're Luton, you go and it's a poor decision. But I think it's the grey area, which is the wrong thing here, because I think that when you're saying, is he interfering? If he stands still, does not move, it's cast iron chance of saying you've got that wrong. But there is movement. And we've all been in stadiums where a ball goes in a certain angle, in a certain direction. You think it's gone in the other way, or you know what I mean? You can't. We don't know what the linesman's sight of that is.
But that's where they need to get together and talk it through.
Yes, but that's a different part of the discussion, isn't it? Because yes, and they didn't do enough of that. But he's there calling a decision, and he's seeing that movement from Jordan Clark, the ball go in that vicinity, and he's called it like that. I wish he got it the other way round and was a bit more lenient with it, but he didn't. And I think that anyone else but a Luton supporter will say that's offside. And I think we're arguing about the grey area here.
I just look at it from the whole corner routine, right? So most teams, when they see Jordan Clark on the goalkeeper, would have a defender there. So they've not put a defender there in the first place. So they're not worried about Clark. They couldn't care less about him. If they cared about him, they'd have put a defender on him so that it wasn't just the goalkeeper who was on him, right? We do it when teams come up and try and block Kaminsky in. We put a defender there to, attack the ball from where that guy is. So they've not done that. They've completely been fooled because every other corner has gone straight to the back post so far, hasn't it? And this one's gone to the front post. So they've been completely fooled by that. Hashioka's flicked it on. As I've said before, against Newcastle last season, we did this exact same thing. Doughty to Barkley to the back post. Townsend had a tap in. It was the exact same goal. This is a corner we have done time and time and time and time again. Clark has come away from the goalkeeper to allow Morris the whole of the goal to shoot into, because if Clark is standing where he was, he'd only have had the side bit of the goal to shoot into. That's why Clark's come out. As Clark's come out, the defence and the forwards have gone through. Elijah's coming in the same direction as what Clark is. Clark gets out of the way of Elijah, otherwise he's going to get run over by a 2-ton truck. The ball's fallen to Morris. He's put the ball in the bottom corner. The goalkeeper at no stage appeals for offside. Nobody appeals for offside. The linesman's just been an absolute stickler and a bit of a prick, and he's put his flag up.
Yeah, and it's a great finish. It's well worked. I think we'll go back and forth on the grey area, and we're not going to find the right colour between us. But then there is the point about should the lino and the referee be having a proper conversation about this?
Absolutely,
because the referee. It's Brexit, isn't it? You don't have to enforce the decision, do you? The referee can go, no, I've seen it a different way. Thanks for your flag, but that's fine. But they don't talk. Well, we don't see them talk anyway. Maybe they've got
they couldn't have talked because he's given he's blown the whistle as soon as the flag's gone up. So there's no communication there. The referee should have gone over to the linesman and he should have just said, all right, pal, who are you flagging offside? Are you flagging the number 9 offside or are you flagging 18 offside? Well, I don't even think the referee would have realised that 18 was offside because he's this side of the defensive line to that. He should have just said, are you flagging number 9 offside? Or is number 9 offside? because he's the only one who's involved in the play, number 9 being Carlton Morris. And if the linesman then says, no, I'm not flagging number 9 offside, then the referee has to decide if the goal is good or if the goal isn't good, because it's up to the referee to determine from looking at it at the goal whether Clark is interfering and impacting with Sunderland players, because from side on you can't tell the depth perception of anything, but looking right at it you can. So this is where they fucked up, because they've not spoken to each other. I'm assuming that the referee's just thought he's flagged Carlton Morris offside, and when he's gone in at half time he's got the fright of his life because he's realised that it's Jordan Clark he's flagged offside. And I would wager if they had their time again, that goal would stand, but obviously that's no use to us. And we went in 0-0 at half time from a half that we absolutely dominated. I haven't seen Luton dominate a 45 minutes like that, well, since Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they've put them together, 5 days apart, it is very impressive because it was so relentless and the high press was there, worked so well. But that's the way we want Luton to play anyway, and that's part of where I think the frustration was in the first 9 games, even though we talked about the style they were trying to implement and why, and I think that was valid. But you've had the international break, reassessed it. In the preview for, was it this one or the Watford one? Who knows? The games come too quick.
Don't they just?
I asked Edwards about this, and he talked about going back to basics, rediscovering what Luton's non-negotiables and fundamentals were, and providing a bit more clarity to the players. I was asking about McGuinness at the time, and McGuinness, probably the preview to this game actually, because McGuinness had just had a very good game against Watford, so I was asking about him, and that's what we've seen. It is back to basics, but because this team is better than the team that last did it in the Championship, that is, they were causing Sunderland so many problems in that they couldn't pass their way out of the boxes that Luton were putting them in, which is really impressive. And you've got to give a lot of credit to Kraus was doing that very well. But even when they did find the spaces to get through, there were players like Tom Holmes, who quite rightly, in my opinion, got man of the match from whoever gave it to him. And it seems so simple, doesn't it? But this is how I started off when I was a kid playing a defender. I got moved up to the pitch because I turned into an absolute fox in the box. But when I was a defender, it was like,
a lazy bastard, you mean?
No, fox in the box. Yeah, words matter. No. But when it's defenders, like get tight to your man. And if you're seeing the ball play to them and you've got room to manoeuvre and they're not going to gently shift you out of the way, try and get your toe on it and get it away, because anything like that stops the momentum. And Tom Holmes was doing that so effectively when he was a defender. And then sometimes he was a midfielder, and then sometimes he was further up, chasing and leading the press. It was a really impressive performance by Tom Holmes, and I think he's lived up to people's hype. They were aware that they were calling for something to change. Get him in. Why is he not playing? And now he is playing, and he's performed so well. 45 minutes against Watford, and we were hoping for more, but then a whole 90 minutes against Sunderland. And I think when you play like that and do everything, it's the basics really well, but to a degree where you're getting clapped for all the basics, which is unusual. He might just have cult hero written on him, that lad.
Well, the weird thing is that all you heard in pre-season is how he's a cart horse of a defender and not very good on the ball. Well, he looked perfectly good on the ball to me on Saturday and again last night. And cart horse of a defender, no, he's got a bit of pace about him, reads the game well. A couple of times he stepped in front of Chris Rigg before the ball got to him, and I just laid it off to Doughty. Does the simple things very, very well. Reminds me a lot of Tom Lockyer in that, does his defending bit and then gives it to someone else to do the rest of it. But immediately our defence looks a lot calmer with him. And you know what else I liked about him? And we'll come on to their opening goal shortly. But once the opening goal went in, he was looking at all of his teammates around him and he was lifting them up, and he was like, come on, we can bounce back from that. We can go again. That's the leadership that we haven't had in them first 9 games. And all of a sudden he's come in, I mean, and the response was immediate. and that was really, really good. I really like what I'm seeing from him. And at some point, we're going to have the discussion about who gets left out, because he can't be, and we're not there yet. We're nowhere near there yet. But I'm looking forward to having that discussion when when we do need to have it.
But this was always going to be the discussion, even last season and the season before, because they've always had good defenders, just can't keep them all fit at the same time. But yeah, when Bell comes back, when Burt comes back,
And Mengi, yep.
it's a very interesting one, because all of a sudden, in the space of 5 days, Luton have looked very calm, very assured. Apart from the 2 mistakes last night.
But mistakes happen.
They do. They do. But apart from those 2, which you can look at and analyse and see where you can do better. But as a whole period of play across those 2 games, it looks so much better. And the crucial thing is there was so little of this ponderous passing around the back, which was getting people's backs up. And that's, I guess, part of the move to go back to basics, isn't it? But it wasn't this Route 1 long ball Wimbledon of the 80s stuff that some Sunderland fans have been making out at all, because there was...
Hold on, is that Sunderland whose halcyon days came from smacking the ball up to Niall Quinn and seeing what come from it? Is it that Sunderland?
That's Sunderland, yeah.
Righto.
That's Sunderland. There were great passages of play between Doughty and Chong working really well, and Clark picking up nice little spaces. And so I don't think you can level that, but there was more directness, which I liked and everybody liked, and that is what I guess the paying public of Luton want to see, that style, because it got the fans on side. And I was quite concerned that it would just be the Watford game, everybody was up for that, and then it was a bit quieter. But no, the fans were really up for it as well. So you have to, as much as you have to praise the team, I think you have to praise the fans as well for having that fire in their bellies as well. And when the 2 work together, that's why we love Kenilworth Road under the lights anytime, really. When everybody's unified is what we were calling for early in the season. I was really worried that unity was slipping away. And I'm glad to see that it hasn't. I mean, it can go the other way, I suppose, if things change, but it's there. And if you can harness that, it's really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, if we're playing to a tempo and we're having a good go at the opposition, Luton fans are fine with that. Listen, we're going to lose football matches. We're going to lose more football matches this season. That's just the nature of the beast, particularly in the Championship, where you've got all the recovery time of a gym session. But there are ways to lose. And we said it after the Sheffield United game. That is not ever the way to lose. But this is. You have a go at the opposition, and ultimately you've been done by 2 of your own cock-ups, and that's absolutely fine. They're second-tier footballers. They're going to make mistakes. I would much rather concede a goal to our own mistake, because you like to think that we wouldn't keep on making the same mistake, than I would the structural nonsense goals that we've conceded for the last 12 months. Mm-hmm. Okay, you could argue that their second one is a little bit of that as well, but the structure is only skew-if because of the mistake or the losing of the ball in the position where we lost it in the first place. But to talk about your what you just said then about passing, we had more passes in their half last night than we did in our half, and it wasn't even close. 137 in our half, 165 in their half. Yeah. Now, in the first 9 games, that would have been 5 million in our half and 2 in their half, because we were fannying about with it at the back. That's what Luton fans want to see. Yeah. Now, if you've got a defence that's not confident, and actually these 3 looked really confident last night, but if you've got a defence that's not confident, get the ball as far away from it as you possibly can, and then go and play your football. Yeah. And that's all we were doing. Sure, we were banging it up long to Elijah and to Carlton Morris. Morris towered above 09. Elijah was taller than Mepham. They are battles on the pitch that you are going to win 8 times out of 10. So why would you not exploit that? You know, if they had 2 6'6" centre halves and we kept on banging it up to Morrison, who was losing every single one because of the height factor, then you would say, well, what's the point in that? But if that's your advantage, that's where you've got to play. And then from there, I mean, Morris is so good at bringing the ball down and bringing people into play. We saw that last season. Ross Barkley really brought that out of his game. Elijah just runs his arse off and makes the defenders panic. They only had 7 fewer completed long passes than what we did last night. So for a team that's supposedly 1980s Wimbledon style direct, according to all their posts on social media, they weren't a great deal worse off than us if they only did 7 less, because we kept on pressuring them into all that they had was smack it long and get it away from their goal so that they could have a 5-second breather before it came back again.
But that's the difference, though, isn't it? They were doing that to try and clear the lines, and it was coming back because there was nothing. Whereas Luton's play is to get it into those areas to start with, have that as the focal point, and then play, which is where Chong and Doughty were having such joy.
Clark and Crow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'd rather that than this Man City style of playing it around the back and trying to wait for spaces to open up. When Man City did it, I said it was boring to watch, and they're the best at it. And it is boring to watch. It's effective for them, but I ultimately think it's boring. And this is Championship football, and people love the hustle and bustle of it. And that's why Luton was so bloody effective in it the last time we were in the Championship. And which is why I think the performance was good as well, but the intensity of it and the desire to win balls high up and press them and not give them a moment's notice was why, after what would have been a week or two ago, 3 weeks ago, a really dispiriting, crushing defeat, which you would have winced a bit about what happened after the final whistle. It was a lap of appreciation where the players looked quite beleaguered and gutted, as they would, but the fans, there was a great noise, clapping, great noise, because everybody saw that is what we want to see from that team.
Yeah, let's get it right. If Luton play like that for the last 35 games this season, we are going to win the 20 games that we need to win to finish in the top 6, because we're not coming up against teams with the defensive nous and the ability to kill a game with the dark arts that Sunderland were able to. And even then, they wouldn't have been able to have done that if Morris's goal had stood. That's why it was the first. That was why it was such a big thing. But yeah, I really liked Luton last night. As I say, I really liked Tom Holmes. The fact that when we were pressing them in, he was comfortable going into midfield. That was the thing. It's not a forced thing. Of course, he's forced to do it because that's the way that they're setting up and things. But he was comfortable with it. When the ball came to him in the centre of the park, he didn't panic. He just controlled it and recycled it to wherever the direction was for it to be recycled. Whereas sometimes, players that aren't comfortable in their panic, don't they? Stand on the ball, lose the ball, and all of a sudden, 4 or 5 people are on 2 going the other way. That wasn't the case. The other thing I really liked was Hashioka was doing the Burke role, wasn't he? And getting right forward, put a couple of crosses in that first half. It was so good to watch. And I don't care how long the passes are. That's the Luton that we want to watch. And we nearly opened the scoring very, very quickly in the second half from it as well. Some brilliant play, got us down the byline. Ball comes over from Jordan Clark, I think it was. His first shot was blocked, wasn't it? Really good block, actually. Didn't block it too far away from him, though. Clark dinked it to the back stick. Elijah, for all that, he's scored, hasn't he? And out of nowhere, the goalkeeper's come along, quick as he moved all night, pushes it over the crossbar. And you were like, it's never going to come for Elijah. Thankfully, in a few minutes' time, it did. But we picked up where we left off. And then, unfortunately, the first mistake happened. Chong plays a back pass, kind of into a tackle sort of back pass towards Holmes. It doesn't go anywhere near Holmes. Unfortunately, it goes to Rigg. He wriggles his way around past Mark McGuinness, who maybe could have forced him a little wider. And once it's got past McGuinness, he's going to score. I have to say, I didn't like Chong's reaction to losing the ball. He just stood on the edge of the box pointing. Sorry, mate. Get your ass back in there and try and sort out your problem. It's just unfortunate. You mentioned an awful lot that mistakes aren't going to get punished in the Championship. Well, they are at the top end of the Championship. And that fell to the wrong person at the wrong time.
Well, there's been an awful lot of punishment, actually, from in this division, considering nobody, including us, I think, was thinking it was going to be as strong as the last season for sure, and maybe even the season before. But there is, but where the ball got to Rigg is very dangerous. But there is still a good 3 chances to try and cut that out, and ultimately it was a litany of mistakes that really caused it. Yes, the Chong one, and I understand he doesn't really race back to try and win it, but then Holmes gets sidestepped a bit too easy. That's fine, that can happen. Then McGuinness is a bit static really for that, and decides on looks like he's going to try and block it, but Riggs not having that, and he goes again, and then and maybe you could say that Kaminsky should come out earlier, but I think once it gets a one-on-one, any good connection is going to go in, and it did, and it was so frustrating because they had not been anywhere near Kaminsky. Again, like as the Watford game, the bloke could have watched it from the stands, and then he's picking the ball out the back of the net.
On his birthday as well. I mean, how dare you score against him on his birthday? I mean, come on now. But 3 weeks ago, we go under. I mentioned earlier in the podcast how Tom Holmes rallied everyone, and the crowd also did. The crowd saw Tom Holmes doing that, and Carlton Morris was doing it as well. And there was, chance of come on Luton. And it wasn't long before we were level. Free kick, sort of just on the corner, a little bit further out of the penalty box. Alfie Doughty plays it to the back stick. Credit to Carlton Morris because he could easily have gone for goal from there. Probably wouldn't have scored at the acuteness of that angle. Just gets a lovely volley on it. Just cushions it really, doesn't he? Lifts it across. Obviously the goalkeeper's braced himself for the shot, so he's completely out of the game now. And Elijah's got an open goal. And finally the ball ends up in the back of the net for the big man. Then he goes off 5 minutes later. I'm like, what? We've waited 12 games for him to score, and he goes off 5 minutes later. Listen, he'd run himself completely into the ground. But if there is one positive above all positives last night, we now know that he's got a goal in him. We know what his confidence is like. We fully expect him to thrive from here on in.
Absolutely. We've said that all along, isn't he? He has always been, since he's been at Luton, a confidence player, and he scores goals in bunches, doesn't he? But he's been getting in good positions, and when he's not been getting in good positions, he's been working really hard for the team. He's been, really good at. We have to acknowledge, like a couple of weeks ago, we said maybe it's right to take him out because it wasn't going so well. But then the next game when he was kept in, he really performed well, and he's carried that on, and he deserved his goal yesterday. And I'm glad he got it. I'm just obviously it's a bit disappointing that we didn't get to savour it for very long, but in terms of sort of one of the last remaining individual problems in the squad, then that was it, wasn't it? And that's out of the way. So now all the strikers, bar Joe Taylor, and let's not open that can of worms with people, but all the ones that are going to get the probably start ahead of him have scored, and that's a real bonus. And I think if they can replicate the performance of the last two games when they go down to Coventry, then you fancy those two to really have a field day.
Yeah, if those two start scoring in tandem, we've got absolutely nothing to worry about because they can score in bunches, those two. I mean, 20 goals last time Carlton was in this division. 11 goals when Elijah was in the Premier League. You can convert that to double in this division as well, certainly with the extra 8 games. Unfortunately, we couldn't stay level for very long. I did hear on the way in, actually, someone on Three Counties said they're a very good second half side, and I guess you can kind of see why. I mean, you would be, wouldn't you? 2 teenagers in the heart of the midfield and a bunch of other 21-year-olds doing the rounds as well. They're not going to tire, are they, at that age? Or if they do, you kind of wonder what's going on. But you wouldn't say that they were better than us at any stage in that second half. And
I think you could say they had a decent, by their previous standards of that game, 10 minutes or so.
I think they were better, weren't they, in the second half? But I still thought we were the better side for much of it.
They weren't pulverising Luton or threatening them in any consistently dangerous way. That's what makes it doubly frustrating with the result, because the two things that just came out of virtually nothing. But yeah, that again for the second goal, it's as much as we praise Victor Moses for his defending in the previous game, he's done exactly what you shouldn't be doing for a right-footed winger playing on the left, and let him cut across, and that's too easy. And that can happen with one player, but then Jordan Clark lets him go past him too.
Well, he just gets sold, doesn't he, by a not particularly good piece of skill.
Yeah.
However, none of this would have happened if old blind Bill in black hadn't got involved again, because unlike for the first goal where Chong's made the tackle and tried to get the pass to Tom Holmes, this time he's turned out of the tackle and he's gone away. And he's left two of them in his wake. And the third one is pulling at his arm for about 10 yards, finally releases him. And just as he releases him, another guy comes along, takes the ball off Chong. Now, there's nothing wrong with the tackle. However, Chong is clearly getting pulled back. That is a free kick all day long. It's the easiest free kick you're ever going to get. His arm is almost being dragged off of his body. Give the free kick. No need to worry. By this time, Kaminsky was taking all of our free kicks in our half, wasn't he? We'd have pumped men forward, it'd have gone in their box, and then 15 seconds later, it's in the back of our net. Yeah, of course, Victor Moses has got to show him down the line. He'll know that. He's not stupid. Jordan Clark cannot be sold quite as easily as that. That's absolutely sure. And again, once he's cut past Jordan Clark, there's no saving it because it's a worldy finish. Credit to the lad for the finish, but the referee has to give that as a foul. If he's not giving that as a foul, what the hell is he refereeing second division football for?
As ever, really, it's the inconsistency of it, isn't it? I think we have to temper it because it is a foul. It doesn't give it, but then there's 3 chances, 4 chances. Could not let that goal go in. So
the defending of it's terrible, but they shouldn't be defending it. If it's a 50-50 foul, or it can't be seen, it's one of those sly tugs of a shirt or something that is done behind the referee's back or out of his view. Chong's arm is being left behind him, and this goes on for 10 yards. You cannot possibly not see that as a foul. I can only assume the only reason why he didn't give it is I'm pretty sure it was Dan Neil who done it, who I think was on a yellow card from the first half, and he knew he'd have to send him off. That's the only reason.
He bottled a few of those as well.
Well, I mean, how the goalkeeper doesn't get sent off having been booked and then do the exact same thing 2 seconds later. Again, he looks over to old Gormless Gordon and nothing's doing here either, is there? The officiating last night was pathetic. As it often is in this situation, I don't expect them to get every decision right. Christ, I don't. But the big decisions, they're the ones that need to be right, and they were all wrong last night. And we paid the price for it. I mean, we're not done with dodgy decisions either, because right in injury time, there's another one. I mean, Aaron Connolly, he literally punches the ball back to 09 to swipe up the pitch right in injury time. Now, Rob's been classy about it, and he said his hand's in a natural position. Yeah, it is, but his body movement, whilst his hand is in a natural position, moves that ball away from an attacking player to 09 to belt out the ball. I mean, that is handball every single day of the week. Whether his arm is here, there, or wherever it is, he has physically moved his body to move his hand, to move the ball. Referee can't see that because he's in a melee of players. But again, old Ted down here, the linesman, he's looking straight at that. I can't for the life of me see how you can't give that as handball. He's literally moved the ball away from an incoming striker to a defender to hoof up the pitch.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've watched it back, and I think Edwards is being very generous when he says his hand's in a natural position. Unless by natural position he means he's having a little boogie and he's giving it the fingers like that. Because, for me that's a penalty.
All day long it's a penalty.
It's really, really, really frustrating, that one, when you don't get. But again, isn't it? I find myself in these situations arguing for VAR when we went the whole last season going, we hate the thing.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need VAR. We just need people with clear sight of decisions to give the decisions. Why are linesmen in this division scared to get involved? Apart from the Carlton Morris goal when he didn't need to get involved. Why are they scared? What are you there for? What's the point of you? Because you're never up with play anyway, so there's no point in you running down that line if you're not going to get involved in the things that you can actually see. I don't get it. It's just honestly, if the referee could see that Connolly movement, then he should give it. But I don't think he can, because because we brought Kaminsky up, haven't we? Then literally everyone's in the penalty box. But from the position where the linesman is looking across, there is nothing blocking him from the movement that Connolly makes. And as I say, the ball doesn't move 2 or 3 centimetres. He moves that on 2 or 3 yards for 09 to then belt up the other end of the pitch. I can't see. For the life of me, I can't see how that's not a penalty. Right in front of me as well. And to compound matters, Joe Taylor gets booked for dissent.
It's mad, isn't it, when you can't just... well, maybe he's used some salty language, we don't know, but you should be able to point out to a bloke...
I was using some salty language, I can tell you.
You should be able to point out to a bloke that you should have had a penalty there. Players all appealed for it. You lot in the Kenny end all appealed for it. Saw a big, massive wave go
Oh,
up.
it's so obvious.
And nothing happens. And then, chaos ensued then, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Just before then, we did have chances to equalise. Jacob Brown plays a lovely ball through for Alfie Doughty about 10 minutes from time. Just couldn't get it out of his feet and hit it straight at the goalkeeper. If he gets it out of his feet, he picks a corner out and it's 2-2. Jordan Clark in injury time had a golden chance. I think he's pushed off balance, actually. Again, there's arguments that could have been a penalty. Maybe soft if it had been given. But he's got more time than he thinks. Bring that down and just find your corner and put it... Because he tries to volley sort of... What that Ruud van Nistelrooy goal for Man United back in the day, wasn't it? It was that kind of. It would have been that kind of finish. He could have controlled that and picked his spot, but if he's not told, he's not told. It's just one of those nights where the second goal just couldn't come, and Sunderland and the referees won the game.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because the amount of let's be honest, not clear cut chances, but a lot of crosses that went in, set pieces galore, pressure. Yes, Sunderland stood up to a lot of it, but if you can just find that, it's the hardest bit of football, though, isn't it? If you can find that extra bit of how to convert those chances and make that dominance count, because even in periods in the previous 9 games before the international break, when things weren't going so right, they were still creating a lot of chances and not taking them, but. Yeah, I think I've asked Rob many times how do you change that, because I think that's one of the mysteries of football, isn't it? That's why the big clubs pay absolutely astronomical wages for your Haalands and your Salahs, because they somehow always manage to get it in, but not in the second division.
No, indeed not. So 2-1 defeat. But yeah, as I mentioned right at the start of the podcast, so many positives to take from it. The most positive defeat that we've had this season, if a defeat can indeed be positive. And I think Rob was reflective of that as well. He was disappointed like the rest of us, but could see that there's more than an ounce of light at the end of the tunnel. And here's what he had to say to James after the game.
Yeah, I feel really, really disappointed at the moment. But credit to Sunderland, they've come away from home and won the game. So credit to them. They're top of the league for a reason at the moment, and they found a way. But for me and us, bitterly disappointed. I just thought we dominated the game almost from start to finish. I thought the first half was almost entirely in their half the territory, and the way we pressed, we couldn't really find a way out. And that's where now, though, we've got to be more ruthless and try and find a way and be more clinical. And whether it's a cross, whether it's a decision, a pass, we've got to find that extra bit. I thought we had with Carlton's finish. If we had VAR, then maybe it would have been ruled back in our favour. I don't think Clicker's doing too much wrong at all. But anyway, we didn't get it. First goals are obviously really important at any level. But we didn't do too much wrong tonight. We did a lot right. And after a really big day for us on the weekend, there was probably a little bit of concern from me about how we're going to react now. Is the intensity going to be there again? And the players gave us everything. I think we had around 20 shots and 4 on target, something like that. So clearly then that last bit was not quite there. Some of our crossing was maybe a little bit overhit or just not quite where it needs to be. And then just thinking of, in the first half, Tom Crouch put an amazing cross in, and we're just not there on the end of it. So it's just positioning as well. But there wasn't a lot wrong. So what we got to do at the moment now is brush up on the 2 moments really that we got punished for. Rigg and Mundell, a couple of outstanding individual efforts, but we can do better to stop that. And continue to do what we're doing at the moment, because that's 2 very good performances in a row. We haven't got the result tonight, but we can't lose heart or belief. I think we've seen they're top of the league at the moment, and I know it's still early days, but we've competed very, very well with them, and in my opinion, should have won the game, but we haven't. So that was good. Saturday was great. So hopefully in terms of the performances, there's a consistency there, isn't there? It's been good. There's an intensity there. There's a desire and a passion the boys are playing with. That's obviously got to maintain. Not perfect, I know that, but so many good things. Dominated, in terms of territory and where we want the game to be played. The game was loads of it was in their half.
Yeah, that last bit from Rob is really interesting, Jimbo, because, like I said earlier in the podcast, this feels like the 22-23 Luton now, with a technical and a tactical nuance to it, that Tom Holmes going in midfield to release another midfielder to go further up the pitch and that kind of thing. It all feels like it's coming together again. And you mentioned earlier in the podcast about us going back to basics, and that's fine and things. But clearly Rob still wants to build from where we were 2 seasons ago, because ultimately the end game is to be in the Premier League and go into the Premier League better equipped than we did at the start of last season. So if he can do some tactical nuances around it whilst maintaining what Luton Town are, tempo, intensity, physical, and all the things that Luton fans love, then that's a positive. And although the result didn't go our way last night, you could sit there and see what differences are occurring. And I like the fact that the two are coming together now, the last season and the new, but they're merging a little bit. And I think the more that happens, there's only going to be more wins for us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're comparing the two, really, and you talk about directness, the last championship side was a lot more direct. That, with the best will in the world, the midfield is better now. So you've got Chong, who runs it, players. Doughty's really come into his own. Kraus was doing it. Jordan Clark seems to be found some form again when he was really struggling a couple of weeks ago. So there's a lot more that can be done in the centre of the park. And if you add things in, like you just said, it's a really interesting tactical aspect of Tom Holmes going in and freeing up, which won't get looked at a lot, but I think it is a new development. It's a small thing that can help move them along. I think that there's a lot more that can be done in the centre of the park, even if you are initially going long to get the ball into the area where you want to play. Let's face it, against Sunderland in the first half, they're playing it all in Sunderland's half. So you've got all 22 players in one half of the pitch. So it is going to be more condensed there, but get it to the front men first. They do what they do really well, which is hold up and bring other people into play, and then you can try and work the spaces there. So, I think that there's still development there while rediscovering the essence of what Luton Town have been, and ultimately what the fans love to see. Because if the fans are seeing what they have done against Watford and Sunderland, same as me, I was loving it, and they're going to react, and then that feeling. The players doing what they're doing goes to the stands, it comes back, and it's just this replicating thing that keeps going, and which is why it was a really fantastic atmosphere against Sunderland, and even to the final whistle. And I think one of the key things is that you mentioned after the first goal, and Holmes was saying, "Yes, get trying to get people up." After the second goal, there was a brief period of oh no from the fans, and then they rallied themselves as well. And it's so important that we don't need to argue amongst ourselves about it. We just need to turn up for the game, don't you? And then it helps. If everybody's nervous about it, then that seeps into the play and seeps into the day and everything, and it doesn't help anybody really. But if there's a performance like that or close to that, most games, everyone's going to be happy, and the football is going to be good, and the results will follow.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, I mean, the reason why I flagged up the Tom Holmes sort of tactical nuance is because if and when we do get back to the Premier League this season, that's what we find in the Premier League, that they sacrifice defenders into midfield to release midfielders further up the pitch. I mean, Man City are the obvious example.
Stones, yeah.
It's usually Stones or Rico Lewis as it is at the moment. And you look at their left back, Gvardiol. I mean, he basically plays as a left winger and he starts scoring from 25 yards like he did against us. Liverpool are very, very similar with Trent Alexander-Arnold that releases another midfielder further up. And these are the teams that Rob as a coach wants to be like. And I'm absolutely fine with that. Where we kind of got caught was them first 9 games we played, or we tried to play the Premier League football that we played in the second half of last season. But the 2 men who allowed us to play that football was Ross Barkley and Sambi Lokonga. And with the best will in the world to Tom Krause, to Jordan Clark, to Tahith Chong, to Shandon Baptiste, and they're not those 2. So we can't play that football without those 2. But now it looks like we found a way of playing it differently by just putting the defender into the midfield and allowing more of the midfielders to become attacking midfielders, and suddenly we get our way up the pitch that way. Whereas last season we were giving it to Barkley, who was dragging us up the pitch with his own direct running. We haven't got that now. So if we can have a little bit of a shield in the midfield whilst we're attacking, so that if we do misplace a pass, because we're going to misplace passes, and the ball comes the other way, we've got a defender there ready to snap it out, and everyone's still in the forward position so that we can maintain like we did last night. 20 minutes. The only time the ball was in our half was when they were hoofing it to get some respite. It was I haven't seen a period of territorial dominance like that for a hell of a long time. Well, apart from when we were camped in by Man City last season. But I mean, you know, that's what you would expect. I mean, even Burnley didn't have us camped in like that. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with that. And yeah, long may it continue. I'm fine with him wanting to put these tactical elements to the play, as long as they're elements that the players that we've got can perform, that we're not needing a Ross Barkley to do because we haven't got a Ross Barkley.
Yeah, and I think they're smaller. They're not wholesale changes, are they? Which I think I don't want to say totally guilty of in the first 9, but there was an element of, right, we're going to now be playing this style of football rather than a gradual.
Well, you could see certain people weren't comfortable with it, couldn't you? I love Ted and Mengi to bits, but you kind of got the vibe that he wasn't comfortable with playing around at the back because he'd either get it caught under his feet or he'd move it on like a hot potato. And that's why I mentioned about Tom Holmes going into the midfield, and he looked comfortable there. You got the impression that he was being asked to do a job that he's been spoken to about, and he's absolutely fine doing. Whereas he's not being asked to do a job that he can't do, but he's got to do it because he's in that position where it has to be done, sort of thing. And I'm really happy with that. And as I say, the other thing that really pleased me last night was the other centre back, Hashioka, was backing up the right winger. You know, Victor Moses would lay it back to him. So then Hashi had 3 options, didn't he? Hashi could then play it inside to Krause. He could play it back to Moses, or he could move forward and put the ball over himself. All of a sudden, just something simple suddenly give you 3 options. The defence don't know what's coming. And whichever one he picks, as long as he picks the right option, and that's on him, as long as he picks the right option, and when Burke's back there, he always picks the right option, then we know where we're going to be. And as a result of that, the attacking output's only going to improve. I mean, 20 shots last night, that's really good against top of the table side. Okay, the 4 on target's really, really bad in comparison, 20% of shots being on target. Some of that's down to how well they defended. We have to give them credit for that. But the longer we're getting more and more comfortable with being at the basics and what we do, the more and more the chances that come along aren't getting snatched at, because we're in the back of our minds, we're thinking, well, the next chance isn't far away. Whereas last season we were snatching at everything because the next chance could have been an hour away. Now they're coming more regularly. And if you're not snatching and you're more relaxed, they find the bottom corner, don't they? Or they find the top corner or whatever. Whereas when you're snatching at them, they find the middle of the stand. And so I'm so much more confident and positive after last night, even though we've lost, and I don't like losing. But I come away from Kenilworth Road really, really happy with where we're going, and full credit to Rob, because, you know, he took all that stick at Sheffield United. Again, some of it he brought on himself by saying this is on me and all that, and we covered all of that at the time. But he's reflected, he's used that 2 weeks, and he's not so much swallowed his pride, but he's accepted the situation that we're in with no Ross Barkley, no Sambi Lokonga, and he's gone back to getting us to a way where we said in that Sheffield United review, didn't we? We've got to find a way to be hard to beat. We have been hard to beat. We've killed ourselves in one, and we will never get beaten in the other. We've got to find a way to get some confidence in the side. Well, we've done all of that. Literally everything that we asked him to do in that international break, he's gone away and he's done it, and we look so much better for it. And I think really our season started on Saturday. This is just a bump in the road, and I'm really looking forward now to seeing what we can do at Coventry. Not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. Forget their league position. They're much like us. They're infinitely better than that, man for man. But if we can go there and win, that's the kind of statement that says, yeah, Luton are back.
Yeah, I think the vibes are coming that they are anyway. I'm really pleased with the way he's clearly had a look at what the issues were in those 9 games and in that 2-week break and the work. And I know a lot of the accusations, but he's been too stubborn about the 3 at the back. Well, listen, they still played that, but it's now working better, because I think you could potentially label that at him if he's trying to play the same way they played last season and not realising we can't play out from the back in the way we did because Ross Barkley and Sam Blakongla aren't there. And they're not now. But the more direct approach is to not have them fanning about at the back with it, but play meaningful balls to get you forward and get you working there. And then
can I just interrupt you on that as well? Because that's the other difference from 22-23. The ball is going into the strikers now. 22-23, you think of the Wembley goal. The ball goes into the channel for the strikers to run. And ultimately, someone else has got to be where they need to be for the goal to be scored. Luckily, at Wembley, Jordan Clark was there to, get it off of Elijah and score. Now, the 2 strikers are in the box. Now it's down to them to score. But how many chances did we have last night? Elijah had the 2 headers, the one that he scored the second one from, the Morris header, between them, they had, 5 or 6 really good chances. Whereas if they're dicking about running in the channels, one of them's out of the game in terms of the attacking output kind of thing. And that's another key difference that he's noticed that's bringing us into the game. And you highlighted the midfield's better. So why wouldn't you bring them into the game more? So I really like that.
Yeah, this is it for me, because it's a understanding of the players he's got and the strengths they've got. So yes, you haven't got a Ross Barkley to play out from the back, but you can play it further forward, and that's where Krause is. To all intents and purposes, he's a better quality upgrade of Alan Campbell in that championship season. It was what they did so well. I mean, Campbell and Adebayo worked that press a treat in that season, and people couldn't live with it. And he's doing that. He's doing that better, isn't he? He's a better midfield, better in a better team, and that's working that way. So it's it took longer than it should have, granted, but then Luton don't start very well of seasons, and we hope that changes. But now it's an understanding that they can play in this slightly different way, which suits the players they've got in those positions, to the point where we're having, or will have, that discussion of who's the defenders, because sometimes things just click and they work. And it did for Tom Lockyer. People forget, he's such a hero now, but he was not the first he was not on the team sheet. Nathan Jones didn't fancy him at all. He played that one game at Newport, scored a goal, they went out, and he didn't feature until somebody got injured, and then he became a hero. Sometimes these sorts of things work, and maybe it's injuries here or there, as it was at the back for this situation, or maybe it's just taking the time to understand how that team can be effective with the players that you've now got, which, in a midfield sense, will also change when the likes of Baptiste comes back. There's another option there, but working what you've got with Krause, knowing what he's got with Jordan Clark anyway, but how can those two work together? It's just, I think anyone that was quick to say that he's being too stubborn, I think now that we can probably ease off that and say, no, he has figured it out. They have looked at it. They have learned. They've implemented different smaller tweaks to it. Not massive wholesale changes, but tweaks that work. Now we're seeing the fruits of that.
Yeah, stubborn no, maybe a little bit too much belief in the players that he had and their capabilities, yes. And now he's just scaled it back. They've all had... We said in the Sheffield United review, we hit rock bottom at Sheffield United, and people were like, oh, I hope that's right, I hope that's right. We did hit rock bottom. There's no going down to those slumps again. And yeah, I'm excited to see these fixtures are coming thick and fast. I'm excited to see what can come of them. I don't think we should judge them necessarily tactically on these. Well, certainly on Saturday, because there is no recovery time whatsoever. I mean, it's literally training on Thursday is going to be basically recovering from last night. They'll do a quick session on Friday morning, and then it's off to Coventry, isn't it?
Half the team aren't training anyway.
Well, that's true, and long may that continue if that's the output that they're giving. So yeah, I think James and I are much more positive about where Luton are a week on from the international break, and looking forward to seeing what can happen at Coventry. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. Thanks to everyone who has subscribed since the last time we did podcasts. If you don't want to miss a minute of our podcasts, we do urge you to subscribe, because they are going to come thick and fast, and they're going to be at short notice, with both midweek games, the one that's just gone and the next one to come being on a Wednesday night. Who scheduled that nonsense? And of course, both Saturday games that follow being 12:30 kickoffs. No correct scores, I'm kind of pleased to say, from the last one. Unfortunately, this traitor on my right picks himself up another point because he went for a Sunderland win.
Oh, silver linings.
You really should be disqualified from that point, to be quite honest with you.
Hey, I am as surprised and as happy as the next man, because I thought that the effort that was put into the Watford game would mean, based on historical evidence, that they wouldn't be able to replicate it. But they did, and that gives me a lot of confidence about the weekend and the rest of the season.
So you're going to forfeit your point?
Absolutely not. No, that point is mine. What's the score again?
6-3. It's disgraceful. We're very close to sorting out a leaderboard on this screen for all of you guys. We're up to date with the scores up until the start of that Sunderland game. There are obviously not going to be many scores to impact on it. We've just got to work out a way that we can get a graphic on screen. But these games are coming so thick and fast, and so are the podcasts, that we just haven't had 5 minutes to sort it out. But we promise, if not before Coventry, certainly before West Brom, we will get that all sorted out, figured out and everything. Because bloody hell, we've got 5 days without a game next week.
What will we do?
I know. We're going to actually have to leave this studio.
Yeah.
Thanks very much to everyone for watching or listening, however it is that you've consumed this podcast. We really do appreciate it. As we do, the support of the Barber Club and the Lower Level in Luton, who host our studio, to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and of course to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. Until next time, which will be roughly in about 5 minutes, which will be a preview of a repeat of the best day of a Luton fan from Jimbo and myself.
Oh, we should say, for this one, because it's so close, I'm going to go and we're going to put in the pre-match thoughts of Rob Edwards, because we'll have the time, let's be honest.
So that's something to look forward to. Make sure you get your eyes on the Coventry preview, where you'll get Rob's up-to-date information. So until then, from Jimbo and myself, come on, you Hatters.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.